give thanks. Today, like we said, God still continue to give thanks to God, and we really thank God. We will be of prayer. It is a day of thanksgiving, and it's a day of really appreciating the
Jesus, I surrender, humbly at his feet I bow.
I am pleased to meet the people who worked with my late brother. You are not just colleagues, but friends in life and true friends in death indeed. Let those of us who are still alive emulate George by carrying on the good work he had done for the country and for mankind in general. George was a universal figure whose work went beyond borders. His love for children and devotion to God will forever last. God bless those his life touched. May the good Lord rest his soul in peace, and the same Lord look after you until your days and mine come. God bless you all.
On behalf of my colleagues, many of them have sent messages of condolences. And Your Excellency, when you called us round, all of us who were in the country were in that meeting with Michael and with Joseph and Dora. Some have had to travel because of commitments. But I'm here today with my colleague, my sister, Professor Margaret Kobia, who served as the CS for Public Service. My brother, Uhuru Atani, who served as the Lord Chancellor of the Exchequer. My brother, Peter Munya, who served as Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture. My friend, Joseph Musheru, who served as CS for ICT. And my brother, Eugene Wamalwa, who served as Minister for Defense, and who also represented all of us at the burial in Game on Saturday. To be frank with you, I have a very long story to tell about Magoha because, as you know, I probably am one of the very few people who are privileged to work with Magoha very closely for about 7 years, 6.5, 7 years in government. Your Excellency, you may recall that sometime in November 2015, when you moved us around, I woke up in the Ministry of Education with all its troubles at that time. The whole story will be in my memoirs when they're published, but I remember that phone call at midnight when you asked me, "Umesikia yale nimefanya?" I said, "Yes, sir. Takueleza kesho what I want to do." I was in Mombasa sorting out Waitiki because I was acting Minister for Lands then. Anyway, long story short, when I came to Nairobi, you spelled out what you wanted done. Then we started the work of putting together a system that would help remake our education sector. Then in around January, February, you appointed Professor Magoha as the chairperson of the Kenya National Examination Council. And I remember that memorable Saturday morning, as though it happened yesterday, when you rounded us up, together with my peers then Belio Kipsang, Nancy Masharia, Secretary TSC, Professor Magoha, and myself. And you spelled out clearly what you wanted done. You said, we must bring an end to examination cheating in this country. My colleagues know what we go through during those situations. Because you said, muache ujinga wa kugusa mutiani hapo. And you said this year, it's not going to happen. Ama mutafute nchi ingine. Then that was the clarion call or order that we needed, which led to the formation of an amazing fraternity in government during some of my happiest days in this life. We teamed up, as you directed then, with CS Musheru, then CSICT. My brother, the late Joseph Kaiseri, the CS for Interior. And you imposed a very punishing schedule on us. I'm now saying that after I've left the government, but you imposed a very punishing schedule on us, wanting updates on a fortnight basis of what you were doing to address the mess in the education sector. And we worked slavishly, but very happily, because you outlined specific results you wanted, and all those wonderful people. And may the Lord bless the late Joseph Kaiseri, and now my brother, Professor Magoha. I have never been happier, and I've never worked with such wonderful people. From the Kenyan School of Leadership in Mount Kenya, where we went that time with Joe Musheru, Joseph Kaiseri, and Magoha to meet with the DCCs and the education directors as you instructed us. We spent time there in the cold, trying to build a system of collaboration between the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Education to manage exams, to make sure we sort this out. Professor Magoha was so committed that he actually traveled to Uganda himself, because when we were looking at various systems around and we thought we could borrow a leaf from here, borrow a leaf from there, and so on, that which was close, he was so committed that he traveled himself. He said he doesn't want hearsay. He came here, he brought the report together with a critique on what we would do and change the whole thing. And we had a very enjoyable time doing a hard but pleasurable task of remaking the education sector. And through all that time, because even when more changes happened in government, and I ended up in the Ministry of Interior, you insisted that we will not dismantle the tripartite partnership between the Ministry of ICT, Interior, and the Ministry of Education. As Professor Magoha himself liked to put it, we are joined at the hip. And so we must work together all the time. We spent long hours meeting all those wonderful Kenyans, and God has blessed us with wonderful people, called district commissioners, county commissioners, regional directors of education, and all those people. Every day repeating to them that what President Kenyatta wants is ABCD, because as Professor Magoha said, we serve at the pleasure of number one, and our job is to outline his vision and ensure that it's delivered. Professor Magoha was the turbo engine, and my colleagues can bear me out. Professor is the one who charged the room. Every time we were in the room, he's the one who supplied the energy. He was always vibrant, and he wanted things to be done. And so, as one of our colleagues, CS Rachel Mamo, said the other day when we met, she said this, and frankly, I agree with her, that we celebrate Professor, and we sincerely submit ourselves to the Lord and say, this man actually completed his work. He was full of energy. He did all of his work. There was nothing that you did with Magoha that was undone. He did all of his work. He lived his full life. He was never bored any minute. He never knew a moment for stories. And I have to say this, because again, this is another aspect of our society. In a country where these days we hardly go through a day without being reminded about regions, who comes from what region and what region is important, what region should own government, and so on and so forth. Not once. And we hired across the board, we had many discussions. Your Excellency, not once did Magoha entertain a discussion about people's backgrounds, about people's ethnicity, about people's regions. Magoha was driven by only one consideration: delivery and excellence in getting the work done. His disdain for politics was not concealed, and his impatience for mediocrity was real. He had no time for pettiness and small talk, and small things around town. He was always driven for results. He said, what does number one want? That's what we do. And this is the way we go. for all of us who worked with Professor Magoha in cabinet, and for me and my colleagues in the education sector in the last 5 or 6 years, we'll be everlastingly grateful to God for the life of this, our wonderful brother. And if there is anything we can do in this world as a tribute to Professor Magoha, in our small way, wherever life takes us, wherever life finds us, we just try to emulate that thing. Honest, sincere delivery of service to the people, period. Nothing else matters. And because of that, you know, a lot of work was done in our country. Your Excellency, there are many things to say. There's problems that you demanded solved and how you wanted. For example, a reorganization of the CQI program by the World Bank. We would never actually have discovered the challenges with that program if Magoha had not served as the Minister of Education. The program was going to be held hostage by certain officials of the ministry, and the government and the people of Kenya were going to lose if Magoha had not been minister in that. And when you insisted that you wanted to see for yourself the data and the facts and everything and how they were done, Magoha delivered. There wasn't a day that you gave assignments and you said things be done in a particular way that Magoha was saying or even grumbling. The other thing I never heard from Magoha for all the time that I worked with him, I never heard Magoha once whine and moan and grumble and complain about systems and people and what have you. He moved in one direction. When Professor Magoha stepped in the room, you knew a leader had arrived. When there was an argument, you predicted Professor Magoha's side even before the argument began. The side would be where the facts are, where the truth is. That is Magoha's side, no matter what. So, honestly, this erudite scholar, very solid academic of unparalleled credentials. There are many people in this world who claim academic credentials. Magoha didn't have to lecture anybody about them. He lived them and you saw them. Since he passed away, I've been called by so many people, colleagues we worked with in the education sector from across the region, because people know how useful Magoha was, for example, to the Inter-University Council of East Africa, to the university standards and the university commissioning credentials across this particular region. Some of our countries in the region could not actually approve their medical schools without Professor Magoha looking at their curriculum. That's how solid and important he was amongst us. I hope that in celebrating him, we emulate those good things he did.
We're here today to condole with you, Mama, and your family, but also to celebrate the life of a colleague, a man of great integrity, a hard-working Kenyan, a sincere Kenyan, a man who was dedicated to the cause of education in this country. I had the opportunity to first meet up with Professor Magoha when he was still the Vice Chancellor at the University of Nairobi. And we had the opportunity to interact a number of times. And by speaking with him, I got to realize that this was a man who was not interested in position, but rather what he could do with position. You know, there's a very big difference. There are people who seek position for the sake of it. But there are those who are in position and are interested in what they can do with that position for the greater good. George Magoha belongs in that category of Kenyan. He was a man who, as I said earlier, would speak his mind. He was a man who did not fear speaking to truth. You may not like what he had to say. You may even disagree with what he had to say, but he would say it. And that, as much as he had great disdain for politicians, that is the mark of a leader. Because a leader leads from the front. Some of the challenges that he had to face were challenges that many would have run away from, saying this is too difficult, or this is too controversial, or this is going to have a problem. Prof, as I used to call him, never backed down, never shied away, so long as he believed it was the right thing to do. He would lead from the front. He would lead from the front. When I appointed him after his term at the university ended, and I appointed him to head the National Examination Council, exactly what Fred said here. We were going through a lot of challenges with exams in this country. And when we met and went through, and I repeat again, leading from the front, Professor took it personally. Professor used to go and ensure where are the exams being printed, supervising it, not sending officers, supervising it himself personally. How are they being packed? Supervising it himself personally. How are they being shipped? Himself. When they land in Kenya, where they are, how they are, until they get to the respective containers. Assigning ministers and PSs and other officers, you are in charge to make sure this container is open, make sure the seal is intact, make sure this is intact, make sure this is intact, to the point that he brought integrity back to our exams. And there is no doubt, and I believe that when I made him a minister, I made the right choice in putting at the helm of education a man who deserved that position, and from there continued to do what he did in addressing the curriculum challenges that we had, in bringing on board a new education system. People may say whatever they want to say. Hiyo ni wataongea, utaona watarudi tu hapo hapo. Hoja wacha wapatiwe nafasi wapige gumzo. They will come back there. Kuna pahali ingine wataenda. Because it was not done to hate this one, to spite that one, to do this one. It was done in the interest of the children of this republic, to better prepare them for that future that was rapidly or radically different from the future that some of us had to look forward to. That is what he was preparing. Kenyans who are able to be up to the challenge of this changing world. And we are grateful to him for that. And we are grateful for his leadership. I think this country has lost not only a great soldier, a great soul, a committed man, but it has also lost a sincere individual, a loyal man, and a person who truly loved what he did. He had no time for the hairy-fairy of office. No, him, it was a job. You know, there are two types of people. There are people who talk a lot about what they will do and do nothing. And those are many. But there are people who will talk very little, but do a lot, and their deeds are seen. Magoha belongs to that class of people who are doers. Very little talking, but in executing, the deeds are there and will never be wiped out, no matter what anybody may wish or desire. My mama, and to your family, he was our colleague, and we worked as a team. We were a team. We were together. And as such, you are also our team members. And with us, you have a family, because we were a family. And we will continue to stand with you, and whatever it is that you may require of us, you can count on us, and we shall be there for you, just as Magoha was there for us and for Kenya. We shall be there for you and your family. May the Almighty God rest this great soul in eternal peace. We shall walk these final days as we prepare to give him a befitting send-off together, and you can count on us to be with you.
When I was pregnant with my son, I was in between life and death with my blood pressure. He told me, if this is what pregnancy is all about, this is closed, this case is closed. And when I had my son, because of the blood pressure and everything, I didn't have any milk. You can't imagine, by 6:30, I had 2 liters of fruit juice, squeezed by him every morning before going to work. And the others used to say, what type of a man is this? Considering the fact that he was not a Nigerian, that's a story for another day. Those days, we Nigerians marrying from the same village was the norm, because somehow we were never related. So to hear that I left the village, left the town, left the county, those we still call them states, we call them states. Left the other states, left the whole of Nigeria. It was like, you're crazy. Everybody said, you are crazy. What's wrong with you? In fact, there was this slang that what is there in Sokoto is there in Shokoto. Sokoto is the farthest point northwest of Nigeria. Shokoto. Written the same way, but pronounced S-O-K-O-T-O. Shokoto means trouser in Yoruba language. So they say, what you are looking for so far away is here. Where are you? So he will say, what did they say? Another day, I'll tell you why his closeness to my mom was so strong that when my mom passed on, it was like he had lost a part of him. He almost broke down in church. Then, another incident was when I had a near-fatal accident 24 years ago when I was coming back from a delivery. I had a head-on collision, and my car turned back to facing where I was coming from. And some people it was around 2 a.m., Holy Thursday. And the people came out from one of the men, they told me, I know you, I'm going to save you. Where do you want to go to? I said, take me to Nairobi Hospital. When I arrived there, the students, they all said, you were my teacher. I said, now I know I'm in safe hands. So I now opened my handbag, because all along I held my handbag to my side. I opened my handbag, I called him, I said, I have an accident, I'm okay, I'm here. And the first thing he said when he came and saw me was, I want you alive, with or without your leg. And I answered him, I told him, I'm alive, number one. Number two, the leg has no permission to go anywhere. I will come back, my legs will come back together, and I will go back to my high heels. Apparently, nobody had ever seen me without high heels. So it was something difficult for people to accept. Even my patients would just come to see, do you have your high heels on? So he was very jovial. Behind that screen was an extremely jovial man. And he used to tell me, I must go before you. Because if you go before me, I will not last. That was always his prayers. So throughout those years, those 20 years, when I'm sick, I'm praying to God not for me to get well for my sake, but for his sake. Because if anything were to happen, any exams or whatever, I know within 10 minutes, everything would be over. That's how close we were. The toughest time of our marriage was when COVID was there. And I told him, if this is the way you were meant to go, then you'll go. If it is not, you pull through. You have to do what you have to do. But we take the risk. You can imagine a family of doctors. He's not a doctor, but he's so exposed. Here was I with my patients. Here was my son, my daughter-in-law. We are all doctors. So it was just like, we're like, if it happens, it happens. But we must soldier on. I gave him that support, and we made it through. And he always said, family came first. He believed in family. From the first day, he said, if I'm up and my family is down, then I'm down. And that's what made me to get involved with him. Because people would say, why did you leave so many Nigerians? He was unique in that way. That caring attitude, I never saw anywhere. He was very loyal. If he told me he was going to be somewhere at 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock he'll be there. It didn't matter. If by 3 he was not there, he would call. If he has not called by 3, I know something was wrong. He made sure he helped whoever. He said, my father used to tell me, you never kick an enemy when he's on the ground. You fight and fight. When the person is on the ground, you stop. And that's why at times when there was so much argument and he knew the other person was down, he would give up just for that. The third one, he was so forgiving. People never knew that. He will talk, scream. The same person you are screaming with, if he says, I have a headache, he will, have you taken medicine? He will come, bring medicine. He will forget every other thing and take care of you till it's over. Then he will tell you, that thing we are discussing is over. That's the end of the story. Whatever it is you were arguing about, he will never bring it up. No matter how you try to bring it up, he will give it to you. But he will say, these are my reservations. If you can work on this, we can be fine. If not, we'll leave it the way it is. Very, very loving. Like his colleagues in NEC used to say, when he wants to get something from me, he tells them to wait. I'm getting something for the boss. And he would call, what do you need? 1, 2, 3. He was very supportive. I supported him, and he appreciated. That appreciation was so much. It made me to go a step further. If I had to stand on one foot the whole night for him to achieve what he wanted the following morning, I would do it. Because when it's over, he would come back and say, without you, I would never have made it. Saying I'll miss him is an understatement. But I know we used to work like 2 major generals. I used to call him Major General. He's commanding the 1st battalion and I'm in the 2nd battalion. So when he has finished, usually during the war, sorry, I know a bit of war because I experienced Biafra firsthand. During the war, if they are going to capture a city like my city, it was Biafra in the morning, Nigeria in the afternoon, then 3 a.m. things change. But whenever they went to capture a city, the 1st battalion will go. And then the 2nd battalion will now go when everything is sorted out. So I used to prepare him. I said, okay, 1st battalion you go, then you come back for the 2nd battalion. So now the 1st battalion is gone. I think I have now to put on the shoes of the 1st battalion and carry on and train the rest. Thank you so much.